Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed Hero, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 12. Alright, I did have a loss prior to this match. It was up against a full-on rush box, and unfortunately I'm still pretty inexperienced about how to deal with all the fancy combinations out there. Clotaire essentially covered the map by turn 2, hit me with AoEs, and my opponent also had a Julian as well as a Wedem, so once the damage was up there, Julian's talent made him pretty much be able to navigate the entire map and AoE me, and then I was able to kill Wedem before he could do anything, but I wasn't able to keep up with the DPS that was coming on my way. It was the first time I ever went up against a Julian, so it was a learning experience. Speaking of learning experiences, we're going against this opponent, which I cannot pronounce. I did do some changes to the box. I replaced Mariandel and Kagura with Iron Blood Commander and Asusa. Mainly, at this point, Kagura is 6 stars, but I went ahead and dropped her. She does really good damage, but one of the things I tend to rely more on in my battles is a lot of dispelling of buffs. So I definitely wanted to maximize that. Also, the last match I showed, where we got to kind of see what support Iron Blood Commander was like. I definitely like the flexibility that Iron Blood Commander can provide, and she can buff herself in a pinch if we need to. So I brought her back. And then Asusa is someone that can tank a hit, usually, in a pinch, and she does have the ability to both dispel, as well as if the target's not immune to debuffs, you can actually disable guard for a turn. Mariandel can also disable guard, though most people have never seen it be done. But as you guys have probably noticed, I usually let my opponent take Rosenseal, for better or for worse, and so debuffs are not really something I can rely on, but dispels I can. Anyway, as for our opponent, we have 1, 2, 3 healers, and then 1, 2... So only 2 tanks? No, sorry, 3 tanks. We do have Grenier. SP Grenier, go for it. Anyway, so yeah, 3-3 for the setup, and then it's mostly a mixture of some assassins and single strikes, and some AoE, so it's a little bit of everything. Generally, you do not want to go 3-3 as your healer-tank ratio, because it leaves you open for certain combinations, which I haven't really been taking advantage of, which is a bit unfortunate. But I did get rid of Jintoki, because he's a problem. They banned my Rosenseal first, and grabs Omega. So at this point, the moment they grabbed Omega, I should have been considering forcing my opponent to either take a tank or a healer. Because I'm going to need a way to be able to get to Omega without dealing with a guard that's being healed all the time. Went ahead and banned Kruger and Sherry at this point. I think that's still a pretty good call. Kruger is definitely an issue because of his 3C, essentially just applying a bunch of debuffs on you from a distance. Grabbed Lightbringer for my tank. They went ahead and took care of my Sherry and my Lucretia. They take their Lucretia. So at this point, I do ban a tank, and I banned Iron Blood Commander, which I think is still a decent call. But I think what I should have done at this point is do the split, because I could have banned a tank and a healer. I would have probably done Christiane and then banned Lycoris. Christiane mainly because obviously my box tends to be pretty caster heavy, and Christiane can be a bit of a problem. And if I was going to be forcing my opponent to either take a tank or take a healer, I'd rather them not be able to take a healer that can also be a DPS, which, with all the terrain, AoEs, and debuffing, definitely did not want to be a Lycoris. So I think that would have been a better call if I took better advantage of this. Went ahead and grabbed Sword and Light and Shadow, mainly just to get more experience with her. As of recording this, she is still 5 stars. She will be 6 stars by the next round of matches. My opponent got rid of Asusa and Yulia, and at this point they took Hilda. So at this point, I now get rid of Lycoris and get rid of Wedem. So essentially the idea was I banned 1 tank to force my opponent to take a tank, and then I ban a healer to force my opponent to take a healer. So I'm essentially maximizing my chances to get rid of DPS, which is generally okay if I'm going up against just a flat tank push. But since there's an assassin, I really should have considered getting rid of their tanks or making it so they can't heal their tanks. Which you'll see kind of the difficulty for that. Went ahead and grabbed Iron Blood Commander. They banned Liana and banned my Auto and Kelmo. At this point, I'm down to 2 healers, so I'm going to have to take a healer. They take Rosen Seal, no surprise there. At this point, I get rid of their remaining DPS, leaving them with either a tank or an extra healer. I think it would have been better if they had taken a second tank. I think Grenier's 3C can guard against everything, but I don't remember. But yeah, if it can guard against magic, I think taking a second tank would have been better than taking 2 healers. Grab Sophia. Nothing too special there. They got rid of my other tank and my other healer, giving me the choice of either Girl in the Shell or Shafaniel. Shafaniel's not too bad, but obviously with all the healing and the fact that Rosen Seal's there, I'm not going to be able to stun Epsilon. So that's just not something I could do. So I grabbed Girl in the Shell, who is still currently 4 stars. She'll be 5 stars by the next round of matches. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my volume on my end. Alright, so nothing too special here. Lucretia here has all of the single targets as well as sorceresses. Elma went all for exclusive skills, so she's not as healy as you may think, but it's still pretty decent. Mainly the extra thing she can do is just throw out lots of buffs. So the reason why I should probably consider maybe getting rid of either tanks or healers is both these healers combined add a shit ton of buffs. So it will actually take quite a bit of effort for me to dispel everything. And the more buffs there are, the less likely I am to get rid of something like a guard debuff or guard buff or something like that. But in any case, Elna with Forest Priest. We got Rosen Seal here with Shrine Maidens, went full heals, it looks like. Epsilon did not bring stealth, so he's just full offense with his own faction buff and giant zombies. Hilda here went all spears, went light of rebirth, went faction buff, 3C, and then rout. So she did actually bring an attack skill. Nothing special here with Sword and Light and Shadow, kind of the same kit. Lightbringer here, I did opt for Templar Knights because one, they get bonuses against Demon, which Epsilon is a demon. The other thing is it does give you increased magic defense to help try to tank things from Lucretia. There's not really any other options besides what was that? I can't remember the troop name, but there is a troop name that reduces magic damage by like 30%, but that's about it. So I went ahead and just went Templar Knights. The bad part about Templar Knights, of course, is their cavalry, and so they're not going to be able to move much in this center terrain here. Iron Blood Commander, nothing too special. Stancy Mercenaries, and then her usual offense. Girl in the Shell, I did swap out her exclusive AoE and replaced it with Dark Reaper, because I'm not going to be doing any fancy debuffing AoE nonsense. And then Sophia is just 3C with Rewind, nothing too special. Alright, so we'll go ahead and dive right into this. So at this point, Epsilon is... So the big thing is Epsilon. Lucretia is also dangerous, because she's Lucretia, she just does tons of damage. But I need to find a way to get rid of Epsilon more than anything. Lucretia can definitely eventually punch Lightbringer down if I don't keep her healed up. But Epsilon can get bypass my tank completely and just start killing people. So with faction buff, his range is all the way up to here. So keeping that in mind. But I went ahead and moved forward. I essentially wanted to potentially bait an assassinate, if possible. Went ahead and did offensive formation just for extra mobility and good stuff like that. So again, just kind of trying to bait out stuff. Went damage upgrade. I do have bonuses against spears and sword infantry, I think. So just a little extra help if I need it. But with how this match is going to go, I don't exactly have time to take advantage of the upgrades. Went ahead and did Sophia buff here for Girl in the Shell. So faction buff plus crystal heal, I think it was. and then plus mirror, and you can already see the buffs are already stacking up here. And then the helmet buff here, so she's already sporting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 buffs. I can get rid of anywhere from 5 to 6 buffs using my Sword and Light and Shadow and Iron Blood Commander's skills. She goes ahead and summons her staff. So yeah, tons of healing over here. So I am pushing forward. I definitely want to take the center as quickly as possible. It will hinder their mobility as well. So the sooner I do it, the better. So again, just trying to provide juicy targets for Epsilon if he's going to take it, but he doesn't. So again, just pushing forward. So moving up like that does actually keep Epsilon's, it does minimize Epsilon's range. So with this, max range is still only up to here. So Girl in the Shell is actually safe at the moment. Went ahead and did a Sophia buff onto Sword and Light and Shadow here. Light recall to teleport. Gets a Tenyo breeze. So yeah, you can see, look at all these buffs. I think there's like a, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 buffs. I mean, some of them will wear off in a couple of turns, but a couple of turns is an eternity in Apex. So yeah, they're definitely shifting forward as well. Again, trying to provide a target for Epsilon. See if he'll take the bait. I mean, I'm willing to lose a DPS if it gets rid of Epsilon. So get hit with Impure Shockwave. So this does have a bonus against Holy, which is unfortunate. And I didn't have a way of getting rid of the debuffs. In hindsight, I think I should have went ahead and applied. I probably should have went ahead and did Light Flow and just get the 2 random immunities, but I didn't. But I did, at full HP, I was able to survive a hit from Lucretia, which was good. So at this point, I went ahead and did Dark Reaper. Does okay damage. I mean, for a 4-star Girl in the Shell. Girl in the Shell actually has really, she has higher base intelligence than Lucretia. She does actually have higher stats. Did a function upgrade. It increases her range. It doesn't really matter because I baited this out. So I have a Reflect Ring and I have Crystal Warlocks. So I do reflect a bunch. It wasn't enough to get the kill though. For this match, I had Breeze Enchants set up for Girl in the Shell. After this match, I did opt to go ahead and switch the Thorns to make her a little bit tankier. I also ended up swapping out her range staff for a Red Moon, so she'll be a bit bulkier with better intelligence, and there'll be a 30% chance that she can just reflect damage back at my opponent. Well, even more than she already does. If I had Thorns and if Thorns had procced, it would have killed Epsilon. That was a lot of things I tended to see in some of the Chinese matches, but I had a bit of cold feet and wasn't confident that I wanted to do Thorns. But after seeing this match and seeing that she does plenty of damage with the range staff, I can swap safely from Breeze to Thorns. The only thing I lose is the 10% damage bonus. If I replace the range staff with Red Moon, I end up actually opting for higher intelligence and higher HP. So it ends up kind of evening out, and Breeze is less useful in Girl in the Shell than Thorns at this point. So that was the idea anyway. So I did lose a DPS. He is still in guard range of Hilda. And at this point I went ahead and just moved in, did Sword Soul. So I dispelled 6 buffs thanks to Mjolnir. Ended up coming up short on damage. I only had a 15% attack buff because I didn't teleport. The good news is I did get rid of the shield using just the 3C AoE. But more importantly, out of the 6 buffs I dispelled, I did get rid of the guard buff. Now, at this point, even without a guard buff, Hilda could have just moved here and probably been okay. It would have exposed all the healers, but then it would essentially just been a big trade show because I would be killing the healers, but they would kill my DPS and so forth. So it's hard to say how well that would have gone. It would have definitely been just a slugfest at that point of just racing to try to kill as much as we can before guards get reapplied. But my opponent did not either took this risk or did not notice that that Hilda had lost guard. So instead, she opted to go ahead and just kill, get the self-res off of Sword and Light and Shadow. And then Arcane Golem's going to attack. Arcane Golem against any sort of troops is just, they're not going to do enough damage. Really, the only time it's good for a double tap with Arcane Golem is if it's a really weak self-res, something like SPL wins, which is very like the bare minimum self-res. So at this point, so I was like, alright, well, since you don't have guard, you don't have your shield, I can dispel all your buffs. And take out Epsilon. So I definitely admit there was probably a lot of luck there. I managed to dispel the guard buff. My opponent didn't either chose not to or didn't notice that I had gotten rid of the guard buff, and therefore I was able to get rid of the biggest threat. I did get hit with Rout, which stunned me, which is a bit annoying. I had 2 debuffs active. I did have the staff that removes that does dispel debuffs whenever you cast anything on an ally. But I had 2 debuffs. I had the debuff from her armor, Hilda's exclusive armor, and then I had the stun from the Rout. And I ended up dispelling the armor debuff, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do anything with Light and Shadow this round, but that's completely fine because I got rid of the biggest threat. I mean, Lucretia is still going to be an issue. She does tons of damage, but I can at least rest easy knowing that my guard will buy me time. So I went ahead and moved in. So I went ahead, since I did get a rewind, I went ahead and just reapplied the holy buff and guard. I did get pretty lucky with some Tenya buffs. I've been getting the healing one, so I recovered 20% HP, which helped a little bit. And as you can see, my opponent's just going full heals now. And at this point, I have kind of blocked my opponent out of the center. So Lucretia went ahead and moved into guard range. So most people, when they take Hilda, they usually take both guards. They'll take their 3C and they'll take the one that puts terrain down. But since my opponent opted to take Rout, she's stuck essentially. She can't reapply her 4-turn guard buff, or not 4-turn. Is it 4 turns? Last 3 turns, so it's a 3-turn guard buff, I think. But yeah, essentially, until that cooldown wears off, she can't literally do much. So Magic Pulse, this actually brings her back up to having 3C active again. Went ahead and did Lightning Slash. This was to mainly get my Blade Soul back up, because she's standing on the spirit that was left behind. And again, dispel another 6 buffs. So something about Hilda, and partially, there's 2 reasons why Hilda is usually not seen as much anymore for tanking. One is the fact that she doesn't have a 3C faction buff, and the 3C faction buff for tanks tends to do both the faction buff and the guard. But for Hilda, she doesn't, so she has to use her faction buff and her guard as 2 separate skills, which means it takes time for her to set up. They also have different cooldowns, which also causes some other issues, and durations. The other issue with Hilda is once she runs out of buffs, she loses her damage reduction, as well as her attack to defense conversion. So she becomes super squishy, or a lot more vulnerable once you get through all of her buffs. She only needs 2 buffs, but I've already knocked her down from the, 14 she had, and now she's down to 3 left, and she has no way of reapplying them. She can get some buffs from Elma and possibly some from Rose and CL, but nothing that'll last long enough to survive a hit from Sword Soul and Lightning Slash. Is that what it's called? No, sorry, Sword Soul and Decisive Blade. Also, I think I had a clock proc there, so I can do it again. And then, of course, Iron Blood Glory can also get rid of buffs. So there you go. So Light Mirror, get some heals. Does Holy Healing. So at this point, I was like, well, Elma's not in guard range. So now you're down to 1 healer. Technically, the staff is still around, but the heal's now on cooldown. Alright, so I go ahead and push forward. I do Light Flow at this point. The debuffs from 3C have finally worn off. Unfortunately, the immunities, the 2 random immunities I got, it was attack and int immunity and the mobility down immunity. So I didn't get the one for defense. Technically, the attack and int immunity does actually provide a little bit of protection because I do some conversions from int into defense. But obviously, I was more concerned about the minus 30% magic defense that the 3C does. So, as you can see, here it comes. So yeah, I was immune to the attack and int debuff at least. But I'm not at full HP. And as you can see, it wasn't enough. But I did have my self-res still active, so I'm good to go. And you can see that they're swapping positions, all that good stuff. But we have a little bit of time now since the 3C is gone. So Sword Soul gets rid of pretty much, I think I got rid of everything, almost. So Sword Soul, I think I have 0 attack buffs right now, or I think it's about to wear off. So yeah, I think her attack buff just wore off. But as you can see, the only buff she has active now is the immunity to fixed damage. Everything else has been essentially purged off. So Light of Rebirth. So was that 4 buffs back up and active? Yep, 4 buffs back and active. Went ahead and did an endurance formation. Oh, actually, I can't dispel anymore. Because I went defensive formation. But that's okay. Infantry versus spears. More than enough to kill. Alright, healed up. I could have moved 3 spaces because of the defensive formation using the 3C, but I didn't really need to go anywhere. Went ahead and did Discipline. Cav troops literally aren't going to do anything to the spear infantry, but she herself can at least do a little bit of damage and as well as trigger some heals. So I'm at full HP this time, get hit with Dark Reaper. Even with the debuff, it's not enough to kill. And then I get hit again by the... I'm able to counter at 2 range, so I was able to hit back. And then I go ahead and do Commander's Ferocity, take out the tank. And at this point, my opponent gave up. So yeah, like I said, this match could have been less messy. I kind of have a somewhat of a mental block on trying to get rid of tanks or healers because I've been burned so many times by people going full on rush and full offense. But I think this match would have been much easier if I had just let my opponent have some DPS. Like, some of them are annoying, but they would not have been as bad to deal with. Because then, if they had no tanks, I would have been able to counter kill Epsilon easily enough. If they went with no healers, I could have just brought Shafaniel and just stunned Epsilon and wrecked everything else in the process. But it's something I need to just take into better consideration in the future. Now, also to be fair, this match was done at 3 a.m. and I haven't been sleeping well because various maintenance has been going on in my apartment. So it's been a bit noisier than usual. But yeah, that was the match. I was kind of tempted to do more this week, but I really couldn't bring myself to do more. I kind of wanted to wait until I get more, get my characters a bit bulked up more. Like I mentioned before, Girl in the Shell is going to be 5 stars, and then Sword and Light and Shadow are going to be 6 stars. Some other things, of course, to note. Right now, I've been, of course, working on casting patterns. I've maxed it out on Lightbringer, Christiane, Auden and Kelmo at this point, Lucretia, and I'm currently working on Girl in the Shell, and I'm also working on Ironblood Commander, and then I have maxed it out with Sword and Light and Shadow, so I'm kind of just working my way through some of this. And then just to kind of show the equipment changes I was doing, so yeah, I'm using Red Moon now instead for the extra HP, and just kind of more general just to make up for the lost intelligence. I don't really need the extra range from the range staff, to be honest. I haven't really been taking advantage of it. And then obviously I'm going Thorns. I still need to do some better enchants for some of these. As always, my enchant luck has not been great. Essentially, I just want to get as much HP as possible so I can tank hits and then just reflect it all. The nice thing about Dropnir is, of course, it's 100% reflect against anything that's ranged, and then anything that's physical, I believe, will work with the Crystal Warlocks, which most of the meta assassins right now are all physical damage dealers at this point. So I figured this will be kind of a better option. And if I don't really need the Thorns part, I can always swap out Crystal Warlocks for something else like Sorceresses or you know, Bat Mages or something, or Firebrand Snipers. Anyway, that's it for now. I am the Depressed Dealer. This is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 12. I'll see you guys later.